What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Ace Weekly Podcast. My name is Andrew Evans, and I am your host. Welcome back to everyone in our Ace Weekly Army. And if it's your first time listening to the show today, we want to give you a warm welcome to the show. So, what exactly is Ace Weekly? Well, the quick and easy tagline is that we are a personal development podcast that is focused in the business and entrepreneurship space. But if you've been following us for the past few years, you know it's about a lot more than that. This show is about advancing human consciousness. This show is about developing people into aces. This show is for those that desire more, to have more, to become more, to be more. And the pathway to happiness is growth. And that's what we focus on this show. So, look, I think it's pretty evident at this point now, more than ever before, our world is changing faster by the day and truly is a need, desperate need of the leadership that is necessary to usher in the positive change that so many of us want to see in the world. And Ace Weekly is a leadership and influence podcast that's focused, and its mission is to develop and create aces. And when I say ace, I'm talking about leaders, people that change the world through their commitment to living a life of purpose, being a positive influence to their families, communities, and their vocations. And this is a community and calling to empower those that are committed to the journey of what it truly means to be an ace in their lives. So each and every single week, we bring on different entrepreneurs, business leaders, peak performers to help equip you all with the skill set and the mindset that is required to attain success today in our ever-changing world. Our goal with this podcast is to create a global movement that inspires the ordinary to become extraordinary. And that's our goal with this show. And by the way, the only way that we can accomplish that goal, the only way we continue towards the direction of creating global movement is if our listeners do one thing. And that is the ask on this show. That's the cost. That's the fee that's associated with this show. We've been running this now. This is season 2 for almost 3 years. Never had an ad on this show. There isn't any money generated from this show. But the cost that is here is that if you listen to this show and you take away some value today, share that value. Meaning, yes, take a screenshot of that podcast, tag Dave, tag myself on social media so we can share it. But if this podcast truly impacts you, be sure to text it or share it with at least one other person that you know that could be impacted in a similar way. So today on the show, we're going to have an exciting conversation planned, and I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be joined by real estate mogul and investor Dave Seymour. Dave Seymour is an investor with over a decade of experience in real estate and capital management. Dave launched his career from being a firefighter and paramedic to rapidly becoming one of the nation's top real estate investors. Within his first few years, Dave was conducting transactions of millions of dollars of real estate and is now recognized as one of the nation's leading experts in both residential and commercial transactions. You may recognize Dave from or as a star of A&E's hit TV show Flipping Boston, which was rated the #1 reality TV series for keeping it real. After 16 years as a firefighter and paramedic, Dave Seymour launched his career, and his unabridged passion for real estate has led him to become a featured guest on multiple news organizations like CBS, ABC, CNBC, Fox News, CNN, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera.
Yeah, you get the idea. New York Times reported Dave Seymour's series Flipping Boston posted the highest ratings ever for the A&E network at the time of airing, and he's been sought after as a tell-it-like-it-is mentor and motivator in the real estate world with a track record of unmatched success everywhere he reaches. And today, he joins the Ace Weekly Army to share some of his story and insight. It's a pleasure to have him joining the show today. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, my brother from another? I tell you, I love the pre-conversations before a podcast recording because you know right out of the gate whether it's going to be solid, whether it's going to be valuable, whether it'll have deliverables attached to it. And, the commonality in the way that you think as a young man and the way that I think as a slightly older man is it's exciting, brother. It's exciting to know because I was listening to you in your intro to the show, a mindset podcast geared towards entrepreneurship. And I don't give a monkey's toss who you are. You will not achieve greatness and impact in your life if you don't take care of first things first. And first
Mm-hmm.
things first is ourselves, right? Our own personal development, our own journey, our ability to be right with self, right? If you can't look in the mirror and love what's looking back, you're going to have some challenges, my friend. And trust me, I've been there. I've been there. I've done a lot of work on me first so that I can help other people next. Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm excited to connect. And yes, it is so true that it always starts with you. Everything comes back to you. And on that note, I'm curious to know, Dave, in a world like real estate, it's flooded. There's everyone, everyone I know knows. There's lots of realtors out there, lots of people in the real estate industry, and it's a big industry. But not everyone has the level of success that you've had, in this industry or just in general, and in real estate. So I'm curious to know, just before you even start, what do you feel like was different about your career? What made you rise to the top when lots of people get into real estate and sometimes don't even have much success with it?
Yeah, what a great question. I'd love to tell you it was my dynamic good looks, my incredible interpersonal communicative skills, my attention to detail, my ability to lead an army of professionals into war every single day. And if I told you that, I'd be a lying sack of doo-doo caca. For me, man, I was given a gift, and it was the gift of desperation. Now that's an oxymoron for some people, but I was given a gift, and my gift was the gift of desperation. My success has paralleled my firefighting career. When everybody else went running out of a burning building, we went running in. When everybody else ran away from fear, doubt, and insecurity in business, I ran towards it. Not because I was highly intelligent. Like I said, I was given a gift of desperation. When I started real estate investing in 2008, I was working 120 hours every week between 3 jobs, which, it's the American way, right? If you want to earn more money, you got to trade more time. Well, that's a fool's bet. It has a ceiling on it. I don't care whether you're the highest paid Wall Street, money mover, or you're a doctor or a lawyer or a business owner. If all you do is trade time for money, you're going to get capped out. There's only so many hours in a day. And, I paid a wicked price for that, brother. I really did. I paid a price with my relationships. It cost me 2 marriages. It almost cost me a relationship with my now millennial son, my 26-year-old Robert. I was a hurting man. I've never had any issue sharing this fact, but in January of 1990, I drank my last drink, and I started a journey which has now been going on for over 31 years of sobriety. Wow. And a lot of personal development came from that, from 12 steps, from learning that on my own I'm weak, and with many I'm strong. If I only have myself for a sponsor and to give myself guidance, then I got a fool for a sponsor, a fool for guidance. So, in 2008, trading all that time for money, I had almost $70,000 in unsecured debt. I had no financial literacy at all, and my house was in pre-foreclosure. So that's a point of desperation, right? How low do you want to go on the elevator? A guy said to me, he said, you put I don't know why it was a gooseberry. Like, who the hell even eats gooseberries anymore? He said, but if you put a gooseberry do you even know what a gooseberry is?
I don't even know what you're talking about. No.
No idea, right? It's like, I don't know, it's like a plum. You put a gooseberry in an elevator. He said, you choose which floor you want to get off. He said, how low do you want to go? And I was in a bad way. I'm not going to make it pretty. I'm really not. The one thing I did have was a foundation in faith, and a foundation in the men and women that I got sober with. So I knew I wasn't alone, even in my darkest days. So I'm in my pickup truck, and I'm screaming and shouting at my God, right? Something bigger and better than me. It doesn't matter whether it's male, female, black, white, Buddha, Jesus, whatever works for you. Just know that you're not God, is what one guy said to me one time. So I'm screaming and shouting at my guy, Andrew, and I'm crying like a baby. I'm losing my house, my relationships. What did I do wrong? I did what I was told to do by my father. My father was a working class guy from the East End of London. I emigrated to the States in 86, but my old man had some solid advice. work hard, don't lie, don't cheat, show up, do a solid 8 hours. If you're lucky, after about 45 years, you'll have a couple of bucks left in the bank. You won't have enough to buy a house. They'll give you a gold watch when you retire. 75, 80, you'll die. And it was like, that was the advice that I was given. And I paraphrase it, but.
And that's the advice that a lot of people receive, right?
Yeah, right. Go to college, get a good education so that you can go out and get a good what? Job, right? Work for somebody else, make them rich, make their dreams come true. I didn't realize any of this shit when I was in the grind, but anyway, I'm screaming and shouting and pounding on the steering wheel of my F-150. Actually, it was a 250 back then because I was still working construction as well.
Nice.
And I'm asking for help. That's an incipient moment in anyone's life. The time when we ask for help. And that's not easy for some people. We're told, figure it out yourself. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Read a book, you'll be okay. It's all bullshit, right? It's all garbage. You help is where it's at. So I asked upstairs for help, and there was a commercial came on the radio right there and then. Teach Me Foreclosure, a free 1.5 hour seminar coming to your neck of the woods.
Wow.
Straight up, brother.
So that moment is literally what has created, the past 10, 15 years of legacy for you.
I was beaten into submission. I took my pride and my ego and I stuck it where the sun don't shine. And I became teachable. I became humble. Being a firefighter and a medic and that big badass macho world, I love the camaraderie of it, but it didn't serve my soul, right? It didn't serve my purpose. That being said, if I'd have had some financial literacy back then, I'd probably still be fighting fires. I loved the actual work. I love serving. I love paramedicine. There's no bigger rush in life, brother, when you're laying on your back in a burning building, watching the fire rolling over your head, and it's mesmerizing, and every fiber of your body is screaming at you to run away. You got a job to do, and you got to stand in the moment. You got to trust in your training. You got to trust in the guys that are next to you. You can't describe that. You can't, if nobody's experienced that, you can't parlay it into a way that's that somebody can compute. But I had to do something different. I couldn't continue the way I was. So I went to a seminar, bro, an hour and a half. And for the first time in my life, I started hearing shit I'd never heard before. Debt is good when you know how to use it. Debt is a tool. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Nobody wants debt. Debt's bad, man. That's bad. Pay off your credit cards, right? You need a credit card for an emergency. Guy says to me one time, I wish I knew what the emergency was and how much it cost so that I could have a credit card ready for it when it showed up, right? I started learning about leverage. Guy said to me, OPM, OPT, and OPI. I said, what is this donkey talking about? He said, other people's money. And I'm thinking, why is anybody going to give me any money? I'm broke as a joke. He said, other people's time. I'm thinking to myself, who the hell's going to give me their time? I've always given my time to other people. Why would that work in reverse? And then he said something which really broke through to me. And he said, other people's influence. He said, David, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. But I was always the biggest, the baddest, the loudest, right? I was first in, last out. And I learned humility and to be teachable. And that was it, brother. That's where it started, man.
Wow. There's a lot to really unpack there in that story. And I appreciate
there is.
Dave, you being open for sharing some of this. And I think about, well, going back to that moment, and that doesn't always, when you look back at people's stories, not everyone has like that moment, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do. That there is this certain point or shift that happens in their life, and sometimes there's a lot of these, but maybe there's that one. And I think like just to pull out of that story, just the idea of asking for help. You're someone that would like. A lot of times, and this is something too, I know I've struggled with at different times in my life of like, hey, if you a lot of times it's like how hard, how beaten up and broken do you need to become before you finally like surrender and say, okay, I'm giving up, you know, and whether that's surrendering to a higher power and being like, okay, I trust God, I trust the universe, whatever, or just like surrendering to your own help, like being able to receive for once or other times. A lot of times we complain about like, you know, I give, and I don't receive back. But it's like,
Yeah.
but how open are you to like receiving help? How open are you to like, are you allowing things to come to you? And a lot of times it's not till you roll over on your back and give up and say, all right, you've got enough punches in the face.
Uncle, right?
And then all of a sudden the aha, you hear the thing, that shift happens because, you know, and at point in your life, if you would have continued on the direction that you were in and continued to focus on this stuff and you would have never been open to that, it's like just imagine the lack of influence and impact and where your life would be if you would have never, like, that commercial is going to come on one way or another, but you would have had a different mindset to be able to receive that when it came on. And I think that's how a lot of life is. A lot of people there's opportunities everywhere. Things are always speaking to us. It's just, are we able to,
You're right
people
there.
that are able to receive
You
them?
got there. Listen, my friend. First thing, Andrew, you said was, you know, not everybody has that moment. I would argue a point to you that they do, but very few recognize when the moment shows up, right? Without getting kitschy and one phrasey, opportunity shows up and it goes in one of two directions. Opportunity either comes towards us or away from us. And the deciding factor is what we do as the individual when the opportunity arises. Unfortunately, mediocrity seems to be acceptable. Unfortunately, starting something and not finishing it seems to be acceptable,
especially in today's culture.
Yeah, it's a culture of gratification. It's a culture of you know, I want it now. I think of you know, the girl out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Remember the girl? I want it all. I want it now. You know what I mean? It's like one of those freaking moments. And you know, I don't lay blame or lay fault anywhere. I'm responsible for myself. Is a dirty, dirty word. It's disgusting, and I'm going to say it anyway. Accountability. Ugh, right? Accountability. I am responsible for my own actions. You know, I think the core current or you know, vibration of development is accountability. And accountability doesn't have to be, you know, a negative connotation to anything. In my life, it's a very positive word, because I'm accountable for my success. I'm also accountable for my failure. And I learn more from failing than I do from succeeding. It's like,
ain't that the truth?
You know, when you get into the world of personal development and, you know, business, real estate, education, the world that I spent many, many, many years in, you know, I'm accountable for my mistakes. And I can do one or two things. When it comes to the capital, I can make my own mistakes and pay the financial price of them in business, or I can purchase somebody else's mistakes, right? And it's really nothing more. It doesn't get any more granular than that. You know, it's like I like to, as a CEO of a company today, I think one of my number one tasks, I think I probably have 3 tasks as a good CEO. The first one is always raising capital, because you need capital to run a business. The second one is being able to take what appears complicated and simplifying it. It's simple. Are you accountable? Did you do a good job, or did you not do a good job? Can you look in the mirror and say, I can do better tomorrow, right? Own every single freaking decision that you stand in. And then the third thing we do, or I try to do as an entrepreneur, is consistently look for good alliances. Surround myself with people who are better than I am. And look, man, it's like my marriage, right? My wife doesn't have the big personality. She doesn't want to stand out front. She's a nurse. She was a labor and delivery nurse. We actually met in a labor and delivery room when I was a paramedic, and she was a nurse delivering somebody else's baby.
That's funny.
But we know our skill sets, right? And I always say my wife is the rock that I get to stand on so I can look cool. Because, you know, without that foundation, I'm nothing, dude. I'm nothing. And there's peace in that. As you discover these things about yourself, you begin to find some peace and harmony in it.
And like
I'd be lying if I said it was easy, though. It takes work. It takes courage. It takes effort to step into that stuff. So anyway, yeah,
yeah, it's
we could
always
go in over.
easier said than done, right? We can
Yeah,
sit here and talk about it on a podcast, but and
yeah,
now in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, I had this happen, but go back to that experience. It's not an easy experience to actually go through or be to it's the man in the arena, right?
yeah,
It's always a different experience actually being the one that has to go through that versus looking back on it in hindsight or being the person on the outside. And I think you said some valuable things there. You mentioned about being like, hey, the 3 tips that you have for CEOs of what they need to be in charge of. But,
right.
my opinion too is that also everyone listening to this podcast right now, you might be an entrepreneur, you might be a CEO, you might not be, you might be a mom, you might be working for somebody else, but you're still the CEO of your own life.
Yes,
And
you are.
I think
Yes.
those 3 things, like, I'll tell you what, hey, being able to raise capital, taking what's complicated, simplifying it, having accountability over that process, and constantly looking for good alliances. Going back to what you said earlier, Dave, like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Paying attention to your network, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little more today because so much of real estate is that.
Sure it is.
Those are all, I just think, 3 good guiding lines, regardless of whether people are a CEO or not.
Yeah, it's a fundamental. You know what I mean? It's a fundamental. It's I did a couple of presentations and seminars with Damon John, right, from Shark Tank,
Right.
and I don't know, we were in the green room or backstage, but we had a conversation, and we were talking about growth, business growth, personal growth. And he said something which was really insightful, not original, but it was insightful at that moment in time. And he said, Dave, he said, I've always put myself in a position to give somebody a hand up, but I don't show up to give somebody a hand out. And people who invest in themselves are people that I invest time and energy in. Not because I don't have a genuine, like or concern for everyone. I kind of live on the premise of everybody starts at 100 and loses points rather than starts at 0 and has to gain points. I got to go out with a decent outlook,
Right.
But it creates an energy right around that period of time when I was in education and as a student. That's when I really delved deeper into my own personal development. And I started reading and learning from guys like Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Secrets to Success. And then I picked up The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And The Secret was a real big personal development wave, if you will, right?
Yeah, it started a lot of, like the not now law of attraction. You say something like that too. It's common speak.
Yeah.
But at the time,
Right,
that was
right.
like, whoa, what is
Yeah,
this?
it was new and exciting, and it was absolutely instrumental in my journey as well, because I began to be cognizant about my thoughts. Right? If you really listen to your own brain, damn thing's trying to hijack the shit out of you.
There's some crazy shit going on in there. If you take some time to actually, and that's one of those turning points, right? I think for so many people in the development of becoming yourself is
Right.
the moment where you start to separate your reality from your own thoughts and actually start to be the observer of your thoughts, start to pay attention to the way that you think versus just thinking and doing, which is how a lot of people go about operating in the world. And the second you do that, that's not when the change happens, but it's when you start to become more aware and notice the change. And that awareness is what allows you to start making the changes that you'd like to have.
I've been running a very destructive dialogue in my own head since COVID hit, and it's around business and finance. And I keep on having this thought, and it goes back to the days when I was broke. It goes back to when I was living in fear every single day. Was I going to be able to execute and make ends meet? And I'm going to say it out loud for the first time, and I mean this sincerely. I haven't said this out loud, but for some reason I'm getting tapped on the shoulder right now, so I'm going to pay attention. I learned to do that because I'm going to dime myself out. Right? I'm going to tell on myself. And I've been running this dialogue in my head, not all the time because I'm semi-conscious of it. And it's like, okay, I got 2 years of reserves. 2 years of reserves. We're okay. We got 2 years of reserves. I'm in a lot of transition in business right now. And I go 2 years of reserves. Okay, we're okay for 2 years. But if you keep on saying that, then the universe says to me, oh, okay, so 2 years from now, you're all done. You're out of money. You're out of opportunity. Everything's over in 2 years, because I send that out there. So it's like when I begin to pay attention to my internal dialogue, that's when I begin to win. When I pay attention to my internal dialogue, that's when I begin to win. So every time that voice pops up in my head with that 2-year timeline, I have on my whiteboard right across from me on the other side of my office, it says, replace my fear with faith, then act. And are my actions in line with my intentions? Am I acting towards a 2-year deadline, or am I working towards a 20-year journey of success, right? Replace my fear with faith. If I did great things yesterday, all I got to do is do the same thing today, and I have a high expectation of the same results. That's taking what's complicated, bringing it down and simplifying it. So, the law of attraction is real. What you think about is what you bring about. Your thoughts do become actions, right? They become things. And I've been a study of that. I've been a student, an implementer of those things. And it hasn't done me any harm. It's only done me good.
Mm-hmm. Dave, I want to appreciate you just for, being able to share that vulnerably on the show too. And I know that it might not be a big deal to you, but I think for a lot of people, whenever they look up, especially, we have a lot of young people that are listening to the show. And when they look at someone that has had a lot of success at anything before, oftentimes, and even successful people do this with other successful people. We put them on this pedestal, as if like, oh, they're just going out there tackling the world. They've got it all. And I think oftentimes what people forget or fail to realize is that the same mental battle that you have as a 21-year-old waking up in the morning and getting stuff done and the doubts that you have and all that stuff, that person that you look up to and aspires and out there and is crushing it, and you see them on social media or doing whatever they're doing, they have those exact same challenges, those exact same doubts and beliefs, and it doesn't ever go away. No. And that's why it's important to, I think, to your point, is like, start to audit your thoughts, become aware of them. I love what you said, is replacing that fear with faith, and it is a change in trajectory, right? Because it's very easy for us to go back into, hey, you've had all this success, and even with that, it's still like, but if I stop having this, I have 2 years. If we start going backwards, I can do 2 years to be safe. And it's like, hey, is my, wherever our focus goes, energy flows. And so if your focus is going towards, like what happens and being safe and, like the backup plan if stuff goes bad, or if it's like oriented towards, hey, what's my vision for the next 20 years? What am I trying to create? What am I trying to build? Like, that's where the energy flows. And so I think not everyone's going to be the same situation that you are, but there's a lot of value in that for every listener.
I was on, I did an event in Toronto. There was 16,000 people at this event, and I was like the MC and bringing on guest speakers and, teaching some real estate. And Tony Robbins was the draw. And I'm backstage with Tony Robbins. I mean, I've been blessed to, rub elbows for a very short time with some really, influential people. But, he said massive passion, massive action equals massive results. And I listened to that and I looked at it, and then I watched him out there in the crowd, and, people wanted to touch him like he was holy or something. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, this is kind of bizarre. What is how do you scale that so that kind of thought process works for everybody? And I remember there was an old timer in AA, right? His name was Pat the Hat was his name. And Pat the Hat used to say,
Pat the Hat from AA.
Yeah, Pat the Hat from AA, like a Boston guy, right? He smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a minute. He was probably 100 pounds soaking wet, tall and skinny. His fingers were yellow, you know what I mean? But he was sober. He was living his life. But one of his little catchphrases was, inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. So you've got these contradictory, outlooks. Tony Robbins says, massive everything, massive, burn the bridges, shave off your eyebrows and walk on hot coals naked with your ass cheeks hanging out, right? What the fuck? What are you talking about, right? And then, Pat the Hat, who was a degenerate, down and out drunk living in the gutter, with now 25, 30 years of solid, clean living and relationships that matter, he says, inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. So why am I bringing that story up? The commonality between Tony Robbins and Pat the Hat is real simple. Keep moving forward, asshole. Don't stand still. Don't parallel. Don't you dare go backwards. Move forwards. Always be moving forward. That is faith replacing my fear. My faith says you're going to be okay. Take another step, take another step, take another step. When I sit in fear, it's the deer in the headlights bullshit. And guess what? I ain't going anywhere. And nobody's going to follow me. Nobody's coming with me if I'm just standing still. I got to create emotion, energy in motion. That's what it stands for. Emotion is energy that moves. So create energy. And that doesn't matter whether it's a parent at home teaching the kids and dealing with the challenges of COVID and homeschooling. It doesn't matter whether you're a kid selling hot dogs on a cart. It doesn't matter whether you're like me, managing a $100 million private equity fund. It doesn't matter. We are always looking for the next right thing and getting in the way of something good, moving forward. So, you're going to love this one. One of my mentors said to me, I forgot this, man. I haven't said this in years. They said, when everything smells like shit, check your own diapers.
That's a different take.
Isn't that good? It's like, man, but those people, man. They're out there and they go, oh, life sucks. Life is hard. You say to them, how you doing? They go, same old, same old. How's it going, Bob? Another day, another dollar. They just ooze misery and disdain for life. Get away from those people, man. Just get away from them. Love them. Don't hurt them. But move towards people with commonalities that you want, right? The journey that you're going on. And that was what I did. I surrounded myself with as many successful people as I could. And I ended up learning a lot of things by osmosis. It's amazing. You change the 5 people you hang around with the most. We're the common denominator of the 5 people that we hang around with the most. And that's statistically been proven that if you take I think it's the annual income of the 5 people that you hang around with the most, divide it by 5, it's within like 5 or 10% of your own income. Isn't that crazy? It's nuts. It's real.
I've heard that too. Obviously, I've heard the saying, but I've heard that they've done like research studies on it as well.
Yeah. They've actually backed it up with science.
Right. Because there's those classic old entrepreneurship quotes that are like, this, and it's like, is that really how it works? But this one's like legitimately, statistically backed.
The other one I love, which is my favorite, and you can GTS, you can Google that shit too, is that people who use profanity are more passionate and more honest than people who don't. I don't know if that's true. I like the research that backed it up, and I'm sticking with it.
Run with that. It's a good article to reference when someone starts to hey dude, you got a mouth on you here. It's that Boston coming through you. Dave, I've gotten like chills for probably 10 minutes straight having this conversation to kick off here this with you. I just think there's been so many different powerful things that you've said. I genuinely feel like we could stop the podcast right here and it would be a pretty damn good podcast with just some of the value that you've spoken and really like allowing some things to come through you right now in this moment. I think it's been really valuable for people. And I do want to get into the little real estate side of things too.
Sure.
Before we do that though, I do have one question. So, there is a little bit of like, you've had this crazy journey, coming from England, you were a firefighter at first, you went into real estate, and then you also like have this weird shift into becoming a reality TV star, which, you weren't like, you weren't an actor beforehand like that, like this, that's also another weird jump into another space of the unknown. Like just, what was that experience like? And how did you find yourself doing that show?
Yeah. When I was in the seminar world as a student, it amazed me that I was in the 3% that actually executed on what they invested in. Like I actually did what I paid for. So I got recognized by the gurus, we'll call them, right? The educators out there, the big companies, the smaller individuals, and they asked me to be a teacher. And now, when I'm a teacher, I now get I'm hanging out with like these info marketers. Now, in 2008, 9, 10, online info marketing was kind of in its incipient phase as well. It was learning and developing. Your Russell
Right.
Brunsons, your Gary V. I mean, I was in masterminds with Gary Vaynerchuk, and like all the big powerhouses today. I knew them when we were all sitting around scratching our asses, going, "What the hell's next?" Um,
Right.
but one of the guys in there, Russell Brunson, sent an email out, a mass email to the guys who were in the education space, that this company in New York was looking to bring back reality TV on house flipping after the crash. So this was like late 2009, beginning 2010. And I knew by then that marketing was critical. And to be a good marketer, you got to make a lot of noise, right? You got to be authentic. You gotta have a story, man. You got to have a story. Nobody's going to listen to your shit if you don't have a good story. So I took this vanilla application, name your company, describe your team, describe the houses that you buy, fix and flip, blah, blah, blah. So I loaded it with profanity, man. I just made it horrendous with profanity. The first question was name of the company, and I put in there, Go Yourself LLC was the name of my company. And I was just like, loaded it. Don't waste my time, shithead. Get on a plane, train, or automobile. Don't call me, you mofo. Beep, 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 beep. I'm Dave, the British Bulldog of real estate and laughter. I'm also a firefighter, mofo. Ba, 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 ba. I just loaded it. And the punchline of the application was, don't call me. So I hit send on the computer. And within 10 minutes, I get a 212 area code from New York calling my phone. So I pick up the phone. I said, I thought I told you not to call me, asshole. And I hung up the phone. Right. And I'm like, oh, please call me back. What have I got to lose? Nothing. I got nothing to lose. Maybe we do something. Maybe we don't. Kid calls back. He's laughing his ass off. He says, you're either a lunatic or a genius. I give him the classic line. What's the difference? And that was it. That was how it started. They came out. They shot a little mini pilot. They loved it. They said, that big English guy looks like he could get angry. We'd like to see more of that. And the next thing you know, we do 4 episodes and we think we're all done. And then they turn around and they go, no, you guys are cool. They like watching you. Let's get 13 more. Now give us another 13. And after that, brother, it was on like Donkey Kong. 4.5, 5 years with a camera up your ass while I'm trying to make a living. But,
Yeah.
it was, go ahead.
How did you balance pursuing that while also, you still have your real job outside of that, and actually trying to, make the waves that you were making in real estate at the time? It's a balance.
Yeah, it was interesting, man. Look, do you know the theory of crabs in a bucket or lobsters in a bucket? Did you ever hear that analogy before?
Don't think so.
When one crab or one lobster tries to get out of a bucket of crabs or lobsters, the other crabs or lobsters pull them back down, right? They want equality. And for me, once you get national recognition on a TV show and you're in the local papers, you're in, Boston TVs highlighting the story about this firefighter from Lynn, a lot of my relationships soiled really, really fast. I mean, guys that I thought were brothers that I loved and went to war with, they didn't all show up to celebrate one of the other guys' success. So a couple of things happened. One, it wasn't a lot of fun to be in a firehouse anymore. And number two, it was costing me money to be a firefighter. I had to make a decision whether I was going to try and do both, and I couldn't. So I actually retired from the fire department because I couldn't afford to be a firefighter anymore. It cost me too much money. And then, focused all my attention to real estate. And that's when it really accelerated.
So you were still doing the firefighting at this point in time while you were doing real estate. Was kind of a side hustle for those first few years. Then you got into flipping Boston, still kind of the side hustle. And then eventually it made sense for you to transition out.
Yeah. And seasons 3 and 4, I was no longer working at the fire department. That was past. And look, and with that came a ton of national recognition, right? It's funny that, one of the cool phrases right now is imposter syndrome, right? Do you have imposter, right? Especially with podcasting and all of the social media stuff that we can do. I could be a I could be a black woman from Alabama and nobody would know unless they actually saw my face. You know what I'm saying? But
I think people
it's
would tell from the voice, but
well, yeah, maybe not. All right, so I exaggerate just a little. But that imposter syndrome, it's been kind of like coined one of the new phrases right now. But I knew what that was back then. I was still fighting my own inner demons, right? Working class kid from the south of England. And next thing I know, I'm sitting on Squawk Box on CNBC with Becky Quick and Andrew Soren and and the rest of the team there. And I was sitting next to the vice president of the Fed, the Federal Reserve. He's sitting next to me as a panelist in New York, and he asked me a question, and I'm like, "Are you talking to me?" In my brain, I'm going, I was in the firehouse a year ago, and now I'm sitting next to the vice president of the Federal Reserve, and he's asking me some kind of question about economics. You know what I mean? And it's like, I know what it feels like to be in that moment, gripped with fear, like I'm an imposter, I shouldn't be here. But I've done enough work on myself to be able to replace that negative thought with a positive thought. And for me, I scream and shout at myself all the time internally, "Stop it. You're awesome." You know what I mean? You can do this. So, that's how we got the show, maintained the show. It put us in really, really good places. Look, here's what it did. It opened up doors for me that the average person would have a tough time finding, let alone actually walking through the door. So for that, I'll always be grateful. It may increase my network.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a lot of, I'm sure you've had some additional real estate success that has come from the marketing and notoriety of the show.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe not everyone's going to be on a television show, but to your point, like a lot of business is marketing. A lot of business is not what you know, it's who you know, and also who knows you. So when you can get yourself out there, and obviously I think a lot of people realize this in the social media world, but attention is really one of the most valuable resources in like our world today.
Yeah.
Because everything and anything wants everyone's attention all the time, and people's attention is what they give out the most to everything else around themselves.
Sure.
But if you can get some of that attention, it might be helpful for.
One of the things I learned very early on, which was incredibly uncomfortable for me, was to go into every relationship. And this podcast, for example, is a classical example of what I'm about to say. Is most people, their opening thought line intention is what's in it for me, right? For some reason, we've been wired culturally for me first. And that's not necessarily the best thing, or I haven't necessarily had the best experiences with that intention. So what I actually trained myself to do was my opening line is, "What can I do for you?" And before this podcast, my opening line to you, Andrew, was, "What's the best way we can serve your listeners?"
Right.
What do they have a palate for? What do they want to hear? What do they want to learn? Do they want the mechanics of real estate? We can talk about that. Do they want the journey from broke as a joke to financial independence? We can talk about that. Do we want to delve into personal development a little deeper with your crew? We can talk about that. So, being able to serve others first is absolutely critical. And I do it today in my own business. I just serve a different client today because of the volatility in the market and capital, et cetera, et cetera. So I serve a different client today. But, the person who gets up every day with me first as an intention, I think they're going to be challenged for growth, right?
Challenge for growth, and how happy are they going to be too in that process operating that. But you go back to
pursuit of happiness.
You go back to just business in general. I mean, it's so simple, right? Most success things are. It's like, really, really simple. But it's simple in ideology. It's tougher in practice. But it's just hey, do you have that inward direction or do you have that outward direction? And I think that's what any successful person, any entrepreneur, they are always thinking in an outward perspective of like, hey, where an entrepreneur is just someone that finds problems in the world and creates solutions. They're looking at where are opportunities to make an impact, where are opportunities to help other people, where are opportunities that I know something or I can serve or I can help somebody out. I think that's any good networker is probably coming in a similar perspective of like, hey, where can I offer people value? Where can I serve? Where can I be of service? And that's the thing too, is that like when you're younger in business, a lot of times people don't understand that because you haven't been around long enough. And I'm even saying this at a young age. Like I recognize that, but you just never really know where a lot of relationships will lead. And you don't know that maybe something that you did in that relationship to serve somebody, it's like, maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe we'll come back to help you, maybe it will never will. But there's so many things that's like, hey, you did that one thing and then get that phone call 4 years later, 5 years later, and it's like you never would have guessed that that person that you just went out of your way to help and serve has now come full circle.
We that's so true. That's so true. I was teaching a 3-day real estate investing class up here in Boston. There was maybe I don't know, maybe 120 people in the room. And at the end of the 3 days, there's an opportunity to invest in more education at a higher level with mentorship and systems and processes. Business in a box type mentality. But there was a millennial in the room, and he was on his own. His name was Eric Wilson, and he came for this 3-day class. And throughout the course of that 3 days, he was highly engaged. Okay. He asked the right questions from the audience. He asked the right questions in his one-on-one conversations with our team. And there was something about this young man to me there was a personality trait to him that was attractive. There was something there. I didn't know what it was that day, but I knew it was something. Long story short, he invested in himself in real estate education. He's now one of the 3 managers in a $100 million private equity fund. Because what that young man did that day was, and he said to me afterwards, he said, I spent $32,000 on my education so I could have your cell phone and email. And I'm like, I get it, right? He paid a price for a seat at the table. And, that distance in youth is not a deficit. It's an asset if you know how to work it properly. I'm not too old to make money, and Eric's not too young to help us all make money together with his skill sets. Mm-hmm. And Eric came from the financial markets, incredibly smart young man, multiple degrees. And he came from coding at Fidelity. He was like writing algorithms for Fidelity to predict market cycles. And I'm like, this kid's wicked smart. You got to have him on board. You know what I mean? And, he's now the chief operations officer at Freedom Venture Investments, manages all of our teams, manages all the flow of data, of investor capital. I mean, an unprecedented young man, but he knew what he was good at and he knew where he needed help. And he showed the vulnerability of asking for help. He was prepared to pay the price for a seat at the table. And, his future is very, very, very bright. And here's the beautiful thing. So's mine, right? Because now we build the company, we continue to grow. You've got a massive team of incredibly powerful people together. At 65, if I want to just go sit on the beach with you in Miami, I can do that because Eric's running the rest of the company behind me. So it's you don't know where and when, but you got to just maybe contemplate showing up when the opportunity arrives.
Yeah, I think something else too that you said is that being young, a lot of people discount themselves, right? Because they feel like they have to wait a certain point. But being young can be a great asset because it's easier to separate and differentiate yourself from others when you're younger. Good. And it's also easier to get help. Like I remember someone saying while when I was in college back in the day, and it was just talking about, hey, use the resources. People love to help college students and like use resources. And someone was talking about a seminar on how to get a job out of school. And they were just talking about how, hey, like send out the LinkedIn messages now. Because people are a lot more receptive when you're like a college student asking questions and helping out versus like you're employed at another company and they're coming in and want to ask you some questions. It's a little bit different of a feel. And I think that's something that's true is that like, successful people love, not everybody, but every successful person loves to help out other people because they've all been in the exact same spot where you are now, And so it's more so about like, But this is something that you said earlier, Dave, is that like you talked about doubling down on that. And something I always tell my people in one of the companies I run is like, hey, like I'm going to match or beat your level of commitment, you know? So like when you get more committed and you show me that, I'm going to pour more energy into you and more commitment into you if I know that you're coming to me with that same thing. And I don't give that same energy and respect and, work towards people that I know just like it's going to be a waste of time. They're not serious about it. But when I find someone that is serious, like that kid called me one time at 17 years old, and he'd been listening to podcasts for a year, and he got a couple conversations with a few guests, and at the time, and ended up like I gave him a job on the spot. He called me, and it's just like seeing like his hunger and drive for it, and there's so many other people out there that are like, oh yeah, they kind of want it, and like the successful people pick and choose who they give that energy to.
What you're talking about is a law of reciprocity, and it's a documented law, just like the law of attraction, right? The law of reciprocity, the law of gravity, they're all real. I just did I was asked by Stetson University up by Tampa to do a presentation to their entrepreneurial program that they have there. And, I got to be honest with you, man, I was a little bit nervous. I didn't graduate college. Those guys took that shit way too serious for me. I had a wife and kids and a house and 3 jobs. I didn't have time to get a bachelor's degree. What are you talking about? Got a little associate's degree. That was easy, right? But so now I'm presenting in a collegiate environment. But here's what I did was I maintained authenticity. What you see on this podcast is the same thing those students got at that presentation. Gave them the good, the bad, and the ugly, the mindset piece, the deliverables, the hunger, to use your words, right? I shared all of those things there, and it was so good. The professor says to me afterwards, he said, the students went berserk. It was so good. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. The reason I'm saying that is because I delivered my 54-year-old authenticity to these young people. They responded to it and absorbed it. I wasn't their parent. I wasn't telling them what to do, right? So there was none of that resistance. I'm just this guy who went on a journey that maybe they identify with as they come out of college. And then from there, I drop my little bomb diggity right at the end. And I say, hey, professor, I'm not even asking your permission for this one, but here's what we can do. I'm looking for 2 interns right now in my company to help us with social media. And he's like, that's awesome. And you could see the chat on the side of the presentation on Zoom go berserk. I interviewed a young lady yesterday, 19 years old. She's in Arizona, but she was doing an online course with Stetson University, and she was engaging on that Zoom call right out of the gate. Fantastic smile, fantastic energy. If I was in a room, she'd be looking you right in the eyes. Right. And I said to her, to your point, and I'm sorry I get so long-winded, but I said to her, here's what I need you to do. I need you now to make yourself so valuable to me that I can't do my business without you. And she said, I love that challenge. I'll take it. That's the difference. I'm not going to create my I don't even do TikTok because it's not my clients, but I'm not going to create my Instagram postings. I'm not going to create my Facebook presence, my LinkedIn presence. She's going to do that. And I got a real sense that she's going to knock the crap out of that thing, and it's going to be awesome. And then she's going to be running my internal marketing department, 8 months or a year from now when she graduates, if she wants to. So that's the story behind leaning into it, stepping into, your own skill sets and bringing them to the marketplace.
I love it. On the top of the hour, I got to respect your time here. I also would love to dive into a little bit of real estate, because we do have obviously a lot of people on here. I think in this year ever, like more so than ever, everyone's looking for side hustles. Sure. Lots of people are looking, lots of people have realized after the year of 2020 that maybe their job or their business, and either one, maybe it's not as secure as I thought it was.
Yeah,
and we're looking at more side hustles, more investing. And obviously, the real estate market has been something that's been really interesting over the past year with, all the changes that have happened.
Yeah.
And, everyone talks about this new normal, right, of the new normal that we're going into, when will things go back? And everything has this new normal, right? Everything has changed and shifted, and some people think it might go back. Some people believe that things might never really go back to that old version. What's like the new normal for real estate? What is the state of the market, and moving forward as we go into the coming years? Like, if I'm listening to this right now, and I've been thinking about getting into real estate investing, what's important to know
What's the
besides
new normal?
everything?
Dude, we need another 3 hours. What's the new normal in real estate? Stupidity. That's the new normal in real estate right now. Absolute distraction and distancing from fundamentals, which is scary. It's freaking scary, man. What I'm talking about is the single family, the residential marketplace. I'm not talking about the commercial marketplace. So if you watch, the reality TV shows, Buy, Fix, and Flip, and Flip in Boston, and Flip a Flop, and Flap and Flippy, and Charlie and Shirley, and whatever else is out there right now. There's so many house flipping shows. That's a very dangerous marketplace to be involved with right now because there's a huge amount of demand and very little inventory. So people are paying way too much money for the real estate. The good side on the finance side of real estate right now is that the interest rates are incredibly low. The Federal Reserve is committed to keeping the interest low for at least another 2 years. When I say low, 30-year fixed mortgages for the buyers of the properties that we fix, they're around 3%. I just did a call with my mortgage team yesterday on a Real Estate Revealed, a radio show I do up here in Boston, and he's like, it's ridiculous. He said 64 offers on one property. People are just swamping these houses to buy them. So if you're an investor, learn what's called wholesaling. Learn how to move paper and not actually own the assets. Be able to find an asset that's way, way below market value, put it under contract, still service the seller and make sure it gets to the closing table. Don't do the deal if you can't do the deal. Don't hijack people's houses. But get a network of other investors around you who can then, execute on that property on your behalf. That's how I started. You got to educate, don't speculate. I mean, that's such a broad question as to the new norm in real estate. Really learn. Is it okay to give away some free stuff on your podcast? Because I got some great tools that they can use.
That'd be okay. That'd be all right.
Is that okay? Okay. For those of you listening, I'll give you 2 places you can go and grab some tools and some education with no strings attached. The first place you can go is to Dave Seymour, which is my name, DAVESEYMOUR.club. If you go there, punch that in, actually type that into your search engine. Otherwise, it will take you to a bunch of other places. If you Google it, actually type it in. And in there, you'll be able to download 3 of the fundamental tools of real estate investing. The first one is the cash flow analysis and flip analysis spreadsheet that I've used in my business now for over 15 years. It's got a little how-to attached to it. Nice, easy tool. Get yourself familiar, paper trade, learn a little bit about your marketplace. With that is also the inspection checklist that I live by, whether I'm doing 150 units in an apartment complex or whether I'm doing a single family house. The checklist of what to look for repairs is there. And then the other thing is the construction schedule, knowing what parts of a repair can work together. So those tools are there for you to get a foundation. DaveSeymour.club. So look, that's where I learned. I learned in the single family business first, and then started with the 2 units and the 4plexes and grew from there. And then today, because of the volatility in the single market, because of COVID, migration, because Florida is the #1 retirement destination in the country, 1,500 people a day, Andrew, are moving to Florida now. For every one, right?
Stay out.
For every one retiree to Florida, it creates 4 service jobs. Miami's having some challenges right now because they're kind of like moving out of the city a little bit. Was the last piece of data I pulled up. But you're gonna be okay. You're gonna come back. You'll infill again as people are getting more and more comfortable with the new normal after COVID. So when we looked at Florida, we said instead of just doing maybe one apartment complex every now and again, why don't we do them all? And to do them all, we have over 25 years of apartment house investing and new construction, ground up construction in Florida. My partner, Walter Novicki, has been down there in Fort Myers for almost 30 years now. And to do our business at a high level like that in commercial real estate, We can't do that with our own checkbooks. So what we do is we work with what are called accredited investors. You can Google that. It's an SEC compliance thing. We work with accredited investors, and then the investors pool capital with us, and they invest with us one of two ways today. This is what my day-to-day is. I'm now in finance. I'm not even in real estate anymore. I'm in finance. But what we do is we pool investor capital in our fund. So the fund raises $100 million and then buys apartment complexes in the Gulf Coast region of Florida. Now, we have a very specific buy box. And what that means is I'm going to let all the big boys pay way too much money and get low yield buying the 200 units and above. We buy the 20 to 140 unit apartment complexes, the smaller ones. We buy them in what are called B-class properties in B-class neighborhoods. And we buy what's called a core plus. Core means the asset cash flows on the day that we buy it. Plus means we can still do some repairs. We can raise some rents. We can lease up vacant units, and a lot of times remove bad management, right? Think of an apartment complex as a business which is being run badly. We buy them based on their actual numbers, what they're doing today, and then we reposition the property is what it's called. So to do that, our investors pool the capital with us, and we pay our investors a preferred 6%. They get the first 6% profit, and then we target 10 to 14% quarterly distributions on the capital that they put in based on the cash flow coming from the properties. Our fund is a 72-month hold. At the end of that 72 months, we're going to sell everything that's in the fund, and then the investors get 75% of the profits when we sell all of these assets on the back end. So the value of an investor's money working over that period of time ends up being targeted around 20 to 22%. So I don't know where else you can go and get a 22% return on your money other than dealing drugs. Maybe a little better in the drug. But you guys know all about that in Miami. But seriously,
there's a good amount of that here.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of those 22%ers here.
Yeah, it's just a solid business model. And then sometimes what we do is we do one-offs.
So you're not buying. So you guys are not. I was wondering why, for how many properties you're probably getting. You're not building. You're just acquiring.
Yeah, we're repositioning what's already there. And the reason for that is my investors are looking for cash flow on the first quarterly distribution. So if you're doing ground up construction, there's no money coming in maybe for 12 to 18, 24 months. That's it's not even a value add. That's more of an opportunistic investment. And look, historically, the yield on that has not been any more substantial than a really good value add or a core plus with a repositioning on the management side. So, we're very good at what we do. We've been doing it, like I said, for over 25 years, raised 125 million in our careers, deployed it, paid it back with the targeted double-digit returns that were on the placement memorandums, right? The documentation that puts it all together. So that's what we're doing today, man. That's the new norm, right? If you write me a check for 100 million, my goal is to buy 300 million in cash flowing assets within 6 months. That's what we're working to do. And we do that through our deal flow and our reputation in the marketplace.
And by the way, if there are any accredited investors that are listening to the show right now that want to check that out, it's freedomventure.com.
Yeah, if you go to freedomventure.com. There's a gift there as well. There's a white paper that we put together. It's our number one downloaded white paper, and at the bottom of freedomventure.com, when you go there, there's a download of a document that we put together. Is alternative investments, commercial real estate. What is it, and is it necessary? Could it be part of a well-balanced portfolio? It's a financial white paper. It's not like a nice comfy little read to make you feel warm and fuzzy. It's the nuts and bolts and the T's and the I's.
Well, what I love, I haven't seen the documents yet, but what I love about kind of what you've shared here a little bit is both on Dave, like the other resource that you gave us, and on these ones. Yeah. They sound like a lot of people have freebie real estate documents, but it's like not the nitty gritty. It's not the nuts and bolts, and I like that you're actually like. It's like, hey, here it is. Like, this is what you need.
This is what I use. This is what I've used in my business. Yeah. I mean, the underwriting that we use for an apartment complex it's got a few more formulas and cells in it than the cash flowing
single family or multifamily
one that I gave you for a download. But if you don't understand my business and you looked at my underwriting formulas, your eyes would bleed and you'd run for the hills because you wouldn't understand anything you're reading anyway. So it's first grade. I'm not going to put you into a collegiate environment in one day, right? You got to go through kindergarten first.
Yeah. Dave, one last question for you. This has been a wonderful show, and it's been a joy to have you on here today. One of the things that I've talked about, I'm curious to get your take. We talk a lot about the future of leadership in the world. And, it's been it's been a crazy ride for a lot of people the past 12 to 18 months.
You think?
A little bit, somewhat here and there. What do you feel like, Dave, is the future of what does the future of leadership look like in our country and world? I know you have a son. I think you said he's 26. So when you think about the future and where we're headed and what you want your legacy to be like in the world, where do you see the future of what does leadership look like?
Yeah, man. Look at you. Look at you asking the probing questions. Look, man, I have a 26-year-old son. Mary Beth, the labor and delivery nurse. We have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old son. So I got all boys, right? So first of all, my wife has the toughest job of raising little boys to be good men. Okay. So what is a good man? A good man understands morality, understands authenticity, understands truth, as does a good woman. So, leadership in this country, the right is so far right. The left has gone so far left. The middle ground seems to be, the silent majority. And yet for some reason it can't speak because of the amount of bullshit that comes at us 24/7 from the CNBC side to the Fox News side. If you want to sit down with a bag of popcorn and have a laugh, just switch between those two channels every 10 or 15 minutes. You laugh your balls off, right? You laugh your balls off. But the sad part of it is that when we are vulnerable, we are impressionable. I'll say that again. When we're vulnerable, we are impressionable. And the combination of the vulnerability that COVID brought to our culture and to this world created those moments of impressionable focus, right? What happened at the Capitol building was an extreme example of that. Pelosi not wearing a mask in the hair salon, right? They wanted to kill the lady for that. It's like, come on, right? Well, what are we doing? So leadership for the future. I'm waiting to see somebody who I can believe. I'm waiting to see authenticity be the norm. I'm waiting for truth to be the norm rather than pontification and bullshit and lies. So I don't have control over that. Right. So one of my prayers is, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and now give me the wisdom to know the difference. So my wisdom at 54 years old is I can't control a Donald Trump. My one vote is one vote. I can't control a sleepy Joe Biden. My one vote is one vote, right? I can't control that world. Do I participate? Yes. It's my right as a naturalized citizen of the greatest country in the world to vote, so that I have that choice to do that. But what I can control at leadership starts inside my own four walls, right? That's where it starts, man. And then I carry that leadership, that authenticity, that truth, that commitment, that service into my business, then to my investors, and then to podcasts like this, bro. Watch this, my friend. We're leaders. We just led for an hour and a half together, and it felt good. And people are going to get a lot of benefit out of what you shared with me and hopefully what I shared with you. That's leadership, brother. Can I swear? Can I swear just once?
You can do it.
Thank you. That's fucking truth, bro. That's the truth. It's authenticity. And when we see more of that, then we'll live in a better world. I can't control the big world. I can just control my little world. And then I work out from there. So I send out a vibration, kind of big picture, but that's how I look at it.
Got goosebumps again. Dave, it's been an absolute joy and pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for just showing up and bringing yourself, bringing your message today, speaking truth. to a lot of people being a leader on this show, and just and the impact that you're having in the world and your company and your family. I really, really appreciate how you're just showing up in the world and all the moving and shaking. I know there's a lot more that the Dave Seymour legacy is just getting started here. So
I'm just getting warmed up here, brother.
Just getting warmed up. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us. We will put both of the links that you mentioned earlier in the show notes. And if people want to connect with you, what's the best place to find you? Instagram?
Yeah, a couple of different ways. So we got the Instagram, Dave Seymour 343 is the Insta handle. You can go there. Facebook, go to freedomventure.com, or you can pick up the phone and call my team, 781-922-4418. If you're sincere and honest about getting some help and a little guidance and some education, then you'll find me. I don't hide, right? I'm not in the bushes. I'm here, baby. Loud and proud.
Thanks again, Dave.